In 150 BC, an Amazigh elder named Yidir engineered a landscape that transformed 30 generations for 2 millennia. We found a method that could produce 10 times the calories of an industrial wheat field. It required 90% less water than a standard commercial orchard. Not a trend, a system. Once you stack the 7 layers, it feeds your entire lineage. Without a plow, without chemical fertilizer, without more than 10 hours of labor per month. We see a system that survived the Roman invasion, the Great Drought, and the Industrial Era. It works because it mimics the immune system of a natural jungle. It is a secret we are rediscovering, but in our modern, supermarket-dependent society, most of us have never been taught about multi-story perennial oases. These ancient forests still exist in Morocco today. Some are over 2,000 years old. They still drop tons of heavy fruit every year without a single person farming them. The silence regarding these systems is not accidental. If you can grow a grocery store that lasts 20 centuries, you stop being a customer. You become a citizen of the land. Today, we are building the autarky canopy in your own backyard or small acreage. By the time you finish this, you will have the blueprint for a self-operating biome. It is a system that feeds itself, repairs itself, and provides constant excess. It filters its own water, creates its own nitrogen fertilizer, and exceeds your family's needs every season. This is not a project. This is a partner. In 2030, when your neighbors are anxious and watching food prices double every month, you will walk into your cool, shaded canopy. You will pick a heavy, sun-ripened fig and feel sovereign. It is a level of security that even a $1 million bank account cannot buy. But first, you need to understand why the Spanish Inquisition burned the maps to these forests. High in the Anti-Atlas Mountains of Morocco, the Berbers are observing the landscape. They do not just plant trees. They invite them. Yidir and his tribe notice something peculiar. The giant Argan and Date Palms act as a shield. They protect the ground from the blistering Saharan sun. Beneath their heavy fronds, the temperature drops. Smaller fruit trees and vegetables thrive in the cool shade. This is the genesis of the 3D farm. They are stacking light harvests in vertical layers. Fast forward to 800 AD. We are in the Islamic Golden Age. The system spreads north into Al-Andalus, or modern-day Spain. Dry hillsides transform into lush multi-story oases. For 7 centuries, this is the peak of human resilience. Then, in 1492, something unexpected happened. It revolutionized the definition of agriculture forever. By 1500 AD, the Spanish crown and the church have seized control. Cardinal Cisneros arrives with a singular obsession for order. He demands straight lines. He wants everything mapped and counted. The church viewed the multi-story forests as chaotic and messy. It was about order, but the real reason was simple. These forests were impossible to tax. The people of Las Alpujarras face a crisis. They are forced into the mandate of monoculture. The crown wants wheat fields that the eye can see. We would expect the villagers to starve or surrender. Instead, they innovate. They hide their ancient systems deep in the mountain ravines. They trade the open field for the hidden forest. Fast forward to our world today. Look at the Inaram food forest in Morocco. It is 2,100 years old. We see a system still producing hundreds of pounds of dates and nuts per acre. Nobody has tilled this soil. Nobody has used pesticides since the time of the Crusades. It is not a project. It is a living machine. When industrial colonialists arrived, they brought the row crop system. This was an inferior alternative that stripped the land of its memory. It required constant, backbreaking tilling. It led to massive water waste. Most dangerously, it created a total, crippling dependence on external seed supplies. We traded our sovereignty for a life of debt. To the industrial mind, the food forest seemed messy and primitive. It was not chaotic. It was hyper-organized symbiosis. By the 1950s, perennial polyculture was considered a decorative botanical hobby. It was no longer viewed as a functional way to feed a nation. Instead, it was treated like a curiosity for the wealthy or a relic for the museum. Not a solution, just a garden piece. The ancient truth was buried under a mountain of NPK fertilizer bags and patent-protected seeds. We were told that straight lines were the only sign of progress. We were taught that nature was an enemy to be conquered with expensive chemicals. The knowledge had been buried. In the 1970s, at the University of Tasmania, researchers Bill Mollison and David Holmgren began studying the old methods. They were searching for a way out of the industrial trap. They documented 300% higher biomass efficiency and established food forests compared to industrial soy. To put that in perspective, a cornfield produces high calories but zero soil health. It also requires 40% more fossil fuel inputs. The data was clear. One system builds life while the other consumes it. The studies were published, and then the momentum stopped. No funding arrived. No mainstream news covered the results. The reason is simple and purely financial. The moment you adopt this system, you stop buying $1,200 of fertilizer and $500 of seeds for every acre. The agrochemical sector is valued at $250 billion annually. They have no incentive to promote a garden that doesn't need them. But the knowledge survived. It survived because once you understand the layered light harvest, the system operates itself. You are no longer a customer. You are the architect of a living machine. The autarky canopy is not just a garden. It is a 7-part living engine. First, you have the overstory. We use giants like the oak or the ancient date palm. This is not just a roof over your head. It is a climate regulator. It blocks 50% of harsh UV radiation. That change creates a vital chain reaction. The shade preserves ground moisture. That moisture feeds the understory growth. You never have to buy expensive shade cloth. You don't need artificial cooling. The canopy provides it for free. Second, you have the understory. Here we place smaller trees like peaches or figs. They are light harvesting specialists. They capture the specific filtered light the overstory leaves behind. They turn these leftovers into calories. By using this layer, we double our output on the same square inch of land. Third, you have the shrub layer. We use nitrogen-fixing plants like the Siberian pea shrub. This is not just a source of berries, it is your fertilizer factory. Small rhizobia bacteria live on the roots and pull nitrogen directly from the air. That nitrogen feeds the soil health. Healthy soil leads to massive fruit yields. You are creating 100 pounds of free fertilizer per acre every year. That is roughly the weight of a giant breed dog. Do you see the pattern? Fourth, you have the herbaceous layer. We plant comfrey. This is the nutrient pump. Its taproots mine minerals from 6 feet deep in the earth. That is deeper than most garden fences are tall. It pulls up calcium and potassium from the bedrock. Other plants cannot reach that deep. When the leaves die, they drop those minerals on the surface. Fifth, you have the rhizosphere. These are your root crops. They are your subterranean storage. These roots break up heavy clay soil. They create tunnels for air and water. That air feeds the worms. The worms feed the soil. You are building a basement of calories that never expires. Sixth, you have the ground cover. We use plants like clover. They act as a living carpet. They stop weeds from stealing your water. So how do you actually build this? And more importantly, what does it cost? Let me be specific. For a standard quarter-acre plot, you are looking at a total cost of $500 to $4,500. This range depends on your scale and whether you rent machinery or dig by hand. Your earthworks will cost roughly $200 to $1,000. Young saplings usually run about $150 to $500. You will spend $50 to $200 on soil inoculants. These are the beneficial bacteria and fungi that jumpstart the soil biology. Finally, basic irrigation runs $100 to $800. Compare that to a decade of buying grocery store produce at 5% inflation. You will quickly see why this has been suppressed. This is not just a backyard project, it is a hedge against a failing system. It is an investment in your own freedom. First, choose your site and mark your contours using the keyline method. This is a way to map the natural ridges and valleys of your land. It ensures water stays on your property rather than running off into the street. Next, dig your swales. These are shallow trenches, roughly 2 feet wide, about the width of a standard sidewalk. These swales act like long, thin ponds that catch every drop of rain and sink it into the root zone. Once the earth is shaped, plant your support species first. These are the nitrogen-fixing shrubs and trees that act as the nursery for your forest. We let them establish for a full season. Only after the soil is protected should you install the crown jewels. These are your food producers, like the peaches, apples, and nuts that will eventually feed your family. The timeline requires a shift in your perspective. From month 1 to 3, you focus on earthworks and deep mulching. We use wood chips to mimic the forest floor and lock in moisture. By year 1, your support trees will reach 4 feet tall. This creates the protective microclimate your food trees need to thrive. Within 3 years, you will celebrate your first significant fruit harvest. But I must warn you, the ugly phase will happen in the 2nd year. Your land will look like a wild weed patch. Do not panic. Do not mow it all down. That growth is the soil healing itself from decades of industrial abuse. It is the signature of life returning. By year 10, you reach the autonomous milestone. You are not managing a project anymore. You are simply harvesting from a living engine that is integrated with your land. 7th, you have the vertical layer. These are your vines like grapes. They use the other trees as a ladder. They provide massive yields without taking up any extra space on the ground. You are stacking functions. The palm provides the shade. The comfrey provides the fertilizer. The berry provides the protection. And you? You simply harvest what falls. Not a project, a machine. Now, let me address something most gardening guides ignore. Space. Many of us fall for the estate fallacy. We believe that independence requires 10 acres of farmland. It does not. You can build a full autarky canopy using dwarf rootstocks. These are fruit trees bred to stay small and manageable. A simple rootstock choice, which costs the same as a standard tree, changes everything. It allows you to fit all 7 layers into a 15 by 15 foot circle. That is roughly the size of a standard parking space. 1 parking space can feed you for life. In most jurisdictions, a food forest does not require a farming permit. You are simply landscaping with edible ornamentals on your own property. It looks like a garden, but it functions like an ancient oasis. You do not need to ask anyone's permission to be sovereign. This is what Yidir understood 2100 years ago in the mountains of Morocco. This is what the monoculture industrialists have spent a century trying to make you forget. You only need soil, sun, a humble handful of seeds, and the patience to let life do what it has always done. It is that simple. In 20 years, your neighbors will be anxious. They will be anxious about brittle supply chains, about eating processed plastics, and about living dependent on a fragile power grid. You will step outside and breathe in the rich musk of deep forest soil. You will hear the constant, vibrant hum of pollinators. You will taste a nectarine that actually tastes like the sun and feel something most people have forgotten. Untouchable. Not the loud version of security that builds a concrete bunker or shouts from the rooftops. The quiet version that simply grows without needing to say a word, because you have built something that cannot be taxed, inflated, or confiscated by any bank or any government. You have built legacy. If this ignited something in you, if you see the legacy, subscribe for more. Share this with those ready to stop being consumers. The seed is planted. The shovel is yours. The forest is waiting.